What's the matter? Are you gonna cry now? You thought you could lie to me and get away with it!
I'm telling the truth, sir.
What are you gonna do, huh? Cry to your bridge club. You look absolutely ridiculous right now.
Before we start the story, tell me, where are you watching from? And if these stories speak to you, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Afternoon heat sat on Maple Hollow like a judgment nobody appealed. Cicadas screaming. Screen door breathing in and out with every little breeze. Martha Cole, 72, hand-stitched cardigan even in summer, humming a gospel line while she watered the ferns that crawled up her porch rail like they knew her prayers by heart. Quiet day, mail stacked neat. Photo of Eli Cole, her grandson, in uniform, centered on the mantle like a promise. Then came the knock, not a neighbor knock. A "you owe me something" knock. "Ma'am, open up, police." Her hand paused on the faucet. She wiped her palms on a dish towel, felt that old lesson all black folks know, how to make your voice soft enough to survive. She cracked the door. "Afternoon, officer. What can I do for you?" Boots on paint, sunglasses full of himself. Officer Trent Holloway, mid-30s, jaw set like he practiced anger in a mirror. "Got a few questions," he said, shouldering past the welcome mat like it was invitation enough. "Where's your grandson, ma'am?" Martha blinked, slow, calm. "Eli's overseas, sir. Navy. He ain't—" "Don't play me," he cut in, walking the little living room like it belonged to him. Eyes traveling over family photos like he was tallying crimes. The house smelled like lemon oil and old stories. "We got reason to believe he's been here. Harboring a fugitive's a charge you don't want to learn the hard way." She lifted her chin a hair. "My boy's serving. You can call whoever you need to call." He snorted. "Yeah? Folks say a lot of things when the porch light's on." He brushed a frame with 2 fingers. Eli in dress blues, Martha beaming in her Sunday hat, and let it teeter. She caught it with both hands before it fell, breath hitching. He clocked the flinch and liked it. "Sir," she said, voice steadying, "you can wait on my porch while I get you a number to confirm." He stepped deeper instead, thumb near his vest mic, like a threat he didn't need to finish. "We'll do this my way. Sit." She didn't. "This is my home." He smiled the way people do when they mistake cruelty for confidence. "Not right now." Outside, blinds twitched across the street. Maple Hollow always watched. Quiet town, loud memory. A kid on a bike rolled slower than usual. Shoes dragging asphalt to hear better. Inside, the clock ticked louder than it had any right to. "Officer Holloway, is it?" she asked, reading the tag. "I'm telling you the truth." "You're telling me a story," he said, moving to the hall. "Where's the back door? Where's the basement?" "Ain't no basement." She moved with him because you don't let a stranger inventory your life alone. "And you don't go want—" He stopped fast. She bumped his shoulder. His hand snapped to her forearm. Quick, rough, unnecessary. Not break you rough. Reminder rough. The kind meant to relocate dignity. She inhaled through her nose, winced, didn't look away. "Careful," he said. "I can add resisting to a lot of things." "I'm resisting disrespect," she answered, and even the air seemed to nod. He let go, but the grip lingered on her skin like a stamp. He opened the pantry, peered behind coats, lifted the back door latch, found only sunlight and a patch of tomatoes too stubborn to die in July. He didn't like the truth when it wasn't afraid of him. Radio chirped. He squeezed the mic. "Unit 3, at Cole Residence on Maple. Subject uncooperative, possible concealment of adult male. Requesting support." Martha's heart tapped faster, but she put the frame back on the mantel with the same care she'd use placing a crown. "You can call support. I'm calling sense." She reached for the landline. He moved quicker than her age would allow her to dodge, palm lightly on the phone base. Not a slam, just a no. "Phone, stay put till I clear this." "That phone is mine," she said. He tilted his head, listening for the part where she backed down. It didn't come. "Sit down, Miss Cole." "Mrs.," she corrected, and pulled the phone past his hand like a church mother reclaiming a hymn. Dial tone like a life raft. She punched numbers from memory. "Operator, this is Martha Cole. I need Maple Hollow PD dispatch. Someone in my home exceeding his." He covered the receiver with 2 fingers. Not hard, just covering. "Ma'am," he said, voice low as a growl under a porch, "you're making this harder than it has to be." "And you're making a mess where there was peace," she said, eyes shining, but not from fear, from anger's older cousin, tired. He held her stare too long and lost. Eyes slid to the mantle photo again. "So your Eli is a sailor." "A Navy SEAL," she said. Not bragging, just facts. "And he ain't in this house." Holloway's laugh was all front yard and no foundation. "That what he told you he is?" She didn't let the insult land. "It's what the country told him he is." Outside, a neighbor's screen door squeaked. Footsteps on the porch boards. "Miss Martha, you all right?" That was Mrs. Larkin from 2 houses down, voice wrapped in worry. "We're fine," Holloway called without asking, opening the door 2 inches, pushing his badge into the gap like a wedge. "Official police business." Mrs. Larkin's eyes dropped to Martha's arm, the red blooming like a memory. Her mouth pressed thin. "I'll be right over here if you need." "Ma'am," he warned and shut the door. Martha felt the room tip, not from balance, from anger trying to stand up too fast after years of being told to sit. She set the phone down gentle. "Officer, I'm getting lightheaded. I need some water." "After," he said. "No," she corrected, walking to the sink on legs that remembered younger days. "Now." He watched her fill a glass, with motions so exact they could have been instructions for respect. When she turned back, he stood closer than courtesy, and that was the first time fear didn't ask permission. It just arrived. She steadied it with prayer you don't hear. You just breathe. "Where does your grandson keep his things?" he asked, scanning the hallway for a room that felt like a young man. "Closet? Attic? Under floorboards?" "He keeps his things where the Navy told him to," she said. "Sir, you are trespassing on decency." He moved past her into the bedroom, over quilts that knew every winter, toward a cedar chest that knew secrets that were none of his business. He lifted the lid anyway, found church programs, a folded flag, letters tied with ribbon. He read the top of one out loud without permission. "Dear Nana." "Put that down." The command came out of her throat like a bell. His eyebrow climbed at the tone. "I see we found the button," he said, placing the letter back with a care that didn't match his intent. He closed the chest and tapped it twice, like he'd won something. "This looks like a good place for a man to hide something." She stood in the doorway, like a line he couldn't cross without proving everything the town whispered about him. The silence went thick. Neighbors holding their breath through drywall. Even the cicadas pausing, like listeners at a good part of a story. Then sirens in the distance. Not close, not committed. The kind of sound a town makes when it's negotiating with its conscience. He straightened, satisfied. "Back up on the way. We'll do a proper sweep." "Then you'll do it with a warrant," she said. He smiled again. No joy, just habit. I don't need one when I see probable cause. You ain't seen nothing but pictures you don't understand, she answered. He stepped past her. Shoulder brushed shoulder. She braced on the doorframe with a hand that trembled only after the moment passed. He clocked the tremor and allowed himself a tiny victory that wasn't one. Out front, the street got thicker. Two teens in hoodies. A pastor with his collar still on. A delivery driver lingering longer than his app would like. Phones up but held low, like they wanted the dignity of the moment to decide if it needed witnesses. Holloway lifted the latch on the back door again. Son slapped the kitchen tiles. If he comes through this yard, he said, he's meeting cuffs first. Martha set the water down and finally let her voice tremble where it wouldn't be taken for weakness. My grandson is on another continent. You're hunting a ghost because you don't like the truth that lives here. He leaned close enough that she could smell the coffee on his breath. Truth's whatever I write in the report. She didn't blink. Then write it slow so God can read it. For a beat, he didn't know how to answer a sentence like that. So he reached for the only thing he did know: control. Sit down, Mrs. Cole. She looked at her own chair, at his hand hovering near her space, at the clock that kept counting like it believed in tomorrow. Then she sat, but she sat like a queen in a throne you couldn't see. Back straight, chin high, hands folded atop a dish towel like lace armor. He keyed his mic again. Unit 3, subject seated, proceeding to secure the residence. Across the street, Mrs. Larkin pulled out her phone, thumb shaking, hit record. Lord, let the truth show itself, she whispered, and the red circle glowed like a tiny lighthouse. In the corner, the photo of Eli caught a shard of sun and threw it back across the room, stripe of light right over Martha's shoulder. She felt it and didn't turn to look. She just breathed like a trumpet player holding a note you can't hear till you remember how to listen. Somewhere oceans away, a barracks door slammed. A man who owed the world nothing and his grandmother everything felt his phone buzz like a fire alarm in his pocket. But right here, right now, it was still only Martha and a man who mistook a badge for a license. The house felt too small to hold both faith and arrogance at the same time. Officer, she said softly, almost kindly, because kindness was armor too. You're making a mistake you can't outrun. He smirked, without teeth. We'll see. The sirens rounded the corner. The street inhaled. The frame on the mantel steadied itself like even the photograph refused to fall. And the knock that shouldn't have happened became the afternoon no one in Maple Hollow would ever forget. Heat still sat on that little house like judgment in July. You could taste dust in the air. Officer Trent Holloway hadn't moved an inch since his call for backup, arms crossed, jaw set like he was guarding a secret. Martha Cole stayed in her chair, chin high, that same towel folded in her lap, like a flag that refused to surrender. The clock on the wall clicked louder, with every second that he didn't blink. He looked at her like she was homework he didn't know how to finish. Funny, he said finally. Folks like you always talk polite right before the lies start. She didn't flinch. Polite's the only thing that ever kept some of us alive. That line hung there, hot as the sun through the window. From outside came the low murmur of neighbors, phones raised chest high, recording like insurance. A dog barked once, short and nervous. The town was waking up to its own reflection. Holloway turned toward the blinds and scowled. Crowd's getting bold out there. They just learned your voice carries, Martha said. He spun back. You think this is funny? I think the Lord's got strange timing, she said, half to herself. He moved closer, not touching, just hovering inside her space, the kind of nearness meant to shrink a room. She met his stare anyway. Her eyes didn't shout, they preached. At the fire station, Tanya Briggs, the on-call medic, heard the dispatch crackle. Cole residents, stand down till cleared. Stand down. The phrase sat wrong. She glanced at her partner. You hearing that? Yeah, he said, already half out of his chair. What's cleared mean this time? Means somebody's scared of cameras, she muttered, grabbing her kit. Mrs. Larkin knocked again from the porch. Miss Martha, you need a glass of water? Holloway barked, back off the property, without looking. Martha lifted her head toward the door. I'd take that water now, please. That simple sentence felt like rebellion. Mrs. Larkin stepped one shoe onto the porch. Then I'm bringing it. The crowd stirred, an old woman defying a uniform. Holloway shifted, one hand resting near his radio, pretending not to notice the eyes watching through screens. Ma'am, I'm gonna ask you to sit still. I've been sitting still since before you were born, she said. Ain't done us much good. He hesitated. For the first time, doubt flickered in him. Thin, but real. He looked out at the people, back at her, like he could feel the story forming around him and didn't know how to stop it. Inside the ambulance bay, Tanya ignored protocol. Dispatch, this is Unit 9. We're responding anyway. Negative, Unit 9. She flipped the radio off mid-sentence. Guess I didn't hear that, she said, peeling out. Sirens stayed quiet. She didn't want to announce herself. The town didn't need noise. It needed witnesses. Martha's chest rose shallow, breath tight. Holloway noticed, but didn't know compassion from strategy. You okay there, ma'am? You don't get to ask that now. He stepped back, pacing. Sweat traced down his temple. Out front, a second squad car pulled up. Another officer, Reed, younger, uncertain, reading the crowd before reading his partner. Trent, Reed called quietly. Chief says keep it calm. I am calm, Holloway snapped. Cameras on you, Reed said under his breath. That was the first time Holloway looked smaller. Not sorry. Caught. Tanya's ambulance slid to a stop half a block away. She grabbed her kit, jogged toward the noise. Who called the medic? Someone asked. Decency, she said. When she reached the porch, Reed didn't stop her. Holloway did. Scene's not secure. Neither's her heartbeat, Tanya shot back. Move! Martha met her eyes through the screen door. No words. Just the shared understanding of women who've had to stay polite for safety. Tanya crossed the threshold. The crowd's volume rose a notch. Phones lifted higher. Holloway's radio buzzed. Chief Walters en route. Too late. The story had already left the building. Tanya knelt beside Martha, counting pulse, voice calm. We're gonna get you checked, okay? Martha nodded, faint smile. Took you long enough. Outside, the crowd pressed closer. Holloway stepped back, face pale under the brim. Across the street, Mrs. Larkin whispered into her phone. It's recording. They can't hide it now. The siren that finally sounded wasn't for control. It was for change, coming up the block. And somewhere overseas, a soldier's plane ticket just became an order of faith and fury. Maple Street had turned into a stage nobody asked for. Sun bleaching the road, phones up, the kind of hush that means folks are watching history before it's news. Martha Cole sat in her chair by the window, pale but upright. Tanya Briggs, the medic, kneeled beside her, hand on the pulse point like she was guarding a secret. Outside, Officer Trent Holloway paced the porch with his radio glued to his palm. Chief, I said we got interference here, he muttered. Too many civilians. Inside, Tanya didn't look up. She needs a monitor, fluids, transport, now. Protocol, he said. Protocol's killing my patient. You're out of line, ma'am. You're out of your depth, she shot back, not even whispering. The neighbors could hear through the screen door. Somebody whispered, "That medic got backbone." Martha smiled faintly. "Child, you remind me of my granddaughter. Don't let this man steal your tone." Tanya grinned without humor. He already tried. The radio hissed again, Chief Walters barking orders from miles away. "Contain the crowd. No medical until I say so." Trent's jaw tightened. "You heard him." Tanya set her bag down slow. "Then you can explain to the state why you left a 72-year-old woman untreated on camera." He blinked. "Camera?" She nodded toward the window. "Half the town's live streaming, officer. Say hi." That's when it hit him. The story had legs now. The badge wasn't armor anymore. In the newsroom, reporter Serena Price slammed her coffee down. "Maple Hollow PD again?" The intern nodded, eyes wide. "Same officer. Holloway. Live streams viral. 50,000 views and counting." Serena grabbed her recorder. "Let's make sure they spell her name right this time." The air hummed with sirens that never arrived. Reed, the younger cop, stepped forward. "Trent, she's not resisting. Let the medics work." "Chain of command," Trent said. "Chain's breaking, man," Reed whispered. "Look around." Phones reflected in every window like fireflies. A preacher prayed under his breath. A teenager held up a sign made from notebook paper. "Respect ain't a request." Martha's voice carried soft but clear. "Son, you can choose to be right, or you can choose to be decent. Decent lasts longer." For a heartbeat, even Trent forgot how to talk. Then Chief Walters' cruiser screamed up the street, lights slicing dust. Tanya wiped her hands. "Sir, she needs a hospital." Walters glared. "You're off this call." She laughed one sharp note. "No, sir, I'm in this call." Martha tried to rise. Tanya steadied her. Walters barked, "Stay seated." And that tone, that single word, snapped something invisible in the crowd. A murmur rolled forward like thunder finding its throat. Phones angled higher. Reed swallowed hard. "Chief, people are recording." "Let 'em," Walters said, but his voice cracked halfway through. Serena's car fishtailed onto the curb. She jumped out, mic in hand. "Chief Walters, are you denying medical aid to a senior citizen?" Flash, microphone, chaos. Trent turned his back, muttering, "This ain't how it looks." Serena aimed the mic closer. "Then tell me how it looks, officer." No answer. Only the sound of an ambulance finally revving down the block. No siren, just determination. Tanya exhaled. "About time," Martha whispered. "God don't run on your clock, honey. He shows up when the lesson's ready." The lesson, it seemed, was already trending. The crowd parted for the medics like a sea that had chosen its side. Walter shouted into his radio. No one listened. Reed guided the stretcher up the porch, voice steady now. "We got her, Miss Cole." She squeezed his hand. "Then act like you mean it." Trent stood frozen on the steps, sunlight cutting through the sweat on his face. A reporter's mic caught the tremor in his breath. Behind him, a woman's phone screen showed comments scrolling fast. "That's her. That's the grandma. Someone call her grandson. They messed with the wrong family." And somewhere over open water, a SEAL checked his messages and whispered to no one, "Maple Hollow?" He didn't smile. He just started packing. The afternoon cracked open like thunder hiding behind sunlight. Maple Street wasn't quiet anymore. What started as 10 folks on porches turned into 50 in the street. Mothers, teenagers, church elders, a few factory guys still in work boots. Phones up, voices low but thick with something new. Purpose. Reporters' vans lined the curb like dominoes. Serena Price's mic stayed live as she walked backward, narrating the moment. What you're seeing is Maple Hollow standing still for justice. Behind her, Officer Reed tried to hold a perimeter that didn't exist. Holloway stayed on the porch, pale under that badge's shine. Chief Walters barked orders nobody obeyed. Inside, Tanya Briggs wiped Martha's forehead, whispering, "They're here, ma'am, all of them." Martha opened one eye. The Lord sends crowds when the truth needs volume. The line traveled fast. Somebody tweeted it. Somebody else printed it on a sign before sunset. A pastor arrived, collar shining, Bible tucked under his arm like a shield. He didn't shout. He just stepped up to the caution tape and said, "We come peaceful. We stay till right is done." Crowd repeated it, slow and deep, like a heartbeat. News choppers thumped overhead. The sound was both salvation and threat, proof the story had outgrown the town. Back at the precinct, phones rang off the hook. "Get those people under control," the chief snapped. Reed looked at him. "Sir, they're under control. You're the one shouting." He didn't say it loud enough to get written up, but loud enough for Holloway to hear. For the first time, Holloway's hands shook, not from anger, from realization. He looked at the cameras, saw his own face reflected in every lens. There's no badge thick enough to hide from playback. Tanya guided the stretcher toward the ambulance. The crowd parted on instinct. No chanting, no chaos. Just eyes, thousands of them, watching one old woman being lifted like living proof. Martha caught sight of the lens nearest her. She didn't wave. She didn't cry. She just whispered, "You see me now." Serena caught it on air. Viewers heard it like gospel through bad cell phone speakers. By twilight, Maple Hollow looked different. Streetlights hummed. People stayed put, waiting. Chief Walters finally faced the reporters. "An internal review will be conducted," he recited. A voice from the crowd called, "By who? You?" Laughter broke through like fresh rain. The chief had no answer. Tanya climbed into the ambulance, door half closed. Her last words caught by a hot mic. "Truth's already in motion. You can't stop a story once the town starts telling it." As the ambulance pulled away, the crowd followed on foot, silent escort down Main. Holloway stood on the porch steps, badge heavy as stone, face hollow. He heard the distant roar of engines from the highway, a convoy moving fast. Didn't know it yet, but one of those engines carried Eli Cole home. The street had woken up, and it wasn't going back to sleep. Thousands of miles away, the air felt different. Eli Cole sat on a cot in a tent that smelled like salt and engine oil, scrolling through his messages between missions. One ping froze him mid-swipe. Elderly woman assaulted by officer. Victim identified as Martha Cole. He read it twice. The world around him dimmed. The generator hum turned into silence that wasn't silence at all. It was his pulse in his ears. He opened the link. The first frame. His grandmother's porch, yellow tape. His childhood front yard turned crime scene. A reporter's voiceover said her name wrong. He mouthed it correctly. Across the tent, a teammate looked up. "You goody?" Eli's jaw flexed. "No." He closed the video, opened his command app. Requesting emergency leave. Reason? Family medical emergency. Approval came back with bureaucratic mercy. 72 hours. He grabbed his pack. No talk, no explanation. The crew knew that look. Discipline holding back a flood. Airports blur when your heart's running faster than the clock. In the terminal, CNN ran the clip on loop. Travelers stared. Eli kept walking. The announcer said, "Authorities have yet to issue a statement," and he thought, "They will when I get there." On the plane, he didn't sleep. He wrote in a notebook, words sharp and even. "Don't yell, don't rush. Make them see her the way I do." The stewardess asked if he needed anything. "Just landing gear," he said. Maple Hollow hadn't rested. The crowd had become a camp, folding chairs, water coolers, signs with fresh ink. "Justice for Martha Cole. We see you, Maple PD." Tanya Briggs did interviews between hospital checks. "She's stable," she told reporters. "But the real condition's the system." Serena Price's footage hit national feeds. Comments scrolled faster than prayers. Chief Walters called an emergency press conference. "The situation's under review," he said, reading off a sheet. Someone shouted, "Then review the video!" He blinked into the lights. No teleprompter saved him. 2 days later, an unmarked SUV rolled down Highway 17. Windows tinted, engine low. Eli Cole stepped out at the edge of town, in desert boots and fatigue pants. Duffel slung over one shoulder. The same heat that once rocked him to sleep in childhood, now pressed down like an exam he didn't study for. Kids on bikes stopped pedaling. Someone whispered, "That's her grandson." Word rippled faster than cell service. He walked straight to the hospital. No press, no escort, signed in under family. When he entered the room, Martha opened one eye, smiled soft. "I told them you'd come slow and steady." He knelt beside her, voice barely a thread. "You always knew my schedule better than the Navy." They didn't talk long. She was tired. He was focused. Before he left, she said, "Remember, Eli, the Lord don't need revenge. He needs witnesses." He kissed her hand. "Yes, ma'am, but witnesses still speak." At the precinct, Holloway stared at the blank report screen. Every word he typed sounded worse in replay. Chief Walters leaned in. "Stick to procedure." "Procedure got us here," Holloway muttered. When a shadow crossed the doorway, both men looked up. Eli stood there, calm as a storm before wind. "I'm here to file a statement," he said. The chief hesitated. "And you are?" "Her grandson." Silence so deep, the wall clock ticked like thunder. Outside, reporters surged. Cameras caught only pieces, uniform fabric, clenched jaw, doors closing behind him. Inside, no shouting, no fists, just paperwork, questions, and a silence that scared authority more than noise ever could. When Eli walked out an hour later, he didn't smile. He just told Serena, "Make sure they spell her name right." She nodded. Camera rolling, world listening. That night, news anchors used words like reform, reckoning, accountability. Eli sat on the hospital roof, watching the town glow. Down below, protesters sang softly, "This little light of mine." He looked up at the stars that once guided him home from sea and whispered, "You taught me calm, Nana. Now the world's gonna learn it too." The echo had crossed the ocean and landed right back where it started. The precinct lights hummed like insects. Paper smell, burnt coffee, tension you could butter. Inside that square brick building, everyone already knew. The grandson had come home. Eli Cole walked through the double doors wearing calm like body armor. Camo jacket, military ID still around his neck, eyes clear enough to slice through noise. The front desk sergeant froze mid-sip. "You here for a report?" "To finish one," Eli said. Every bootstep echoed off tile like the hallway was measuring courage. Officers pretended to keep typing, but every monitor glowed brighter in his reflection. In the back office, Chief Walters paced. "He's here," someone whispered. Walters adjusted his tie. Then let's act like professionals. Nobody breathed the word afraid, but the air knew. Holloway stood behind the glass partition, watching Eli cross the bullpen. Their eyes met before words had the courage to show up. 2 uniforms, one earned in war, one inherited by habit. Eli stopped 3 feet away. "You the man who questioned my grandmother?" Holloway cleared his throat. "I conducted a lawful search." Eli's voice didn't rise. "Lawful's what you call it when you run out of moral." The room got small. Phones stopped ringing. Every officer nearby stared at their desks like they'd forgotten the alphabet. Walters stepped in, trying to own the air again. "Mr. Cole, we understand your anger." "Don't confuse calm with forgiveness," Eli said. "I came to file facts, not feelings." He set a folder on the table. Printed screenshots, timestamps, statements from neighbors, the medic's transcript. Everything labeled neat, Navy precision. "This is the report you never wrote," he said. Serena Price's camera light blinked red behind the lobby glass. She caught every word through reflection. Outside, the crowd waited for the shape of justice. Walters skimmed the first page, face draining. "Where'd you get all this?" Eli folded his arms. "From people who weren't scared to look." Holloway tried to laugh it off. "Weak. You think this is going to change policy?" Eli stepped forward, just enough for honesty to hurt. "Not policy, culture." He turned toward the press window, because the world's already watching. "Y'all forgot the mic never turns off anymore." Internal affairs agents arrived before sunset, summoned not by protocol, but by public opinion. 2 men in plain suits walked past the crowd straight to Holloway's desk. "Officer Trent Holloway? Yeah. You're on administrative review, effective immediately. Badge and sidearm." The click of metal on wood sounded like punctuation at the end of a long lie. Walters looked around, realizing leadership wasn't volume, it was consequence. Eli didn't smile. He just nodded once, the way soldiers do when the mission's clean. Outside, microphones and chants mixed with cicadas. Eli stepped into the sunlight. Tanya Briggs met him halfway. "How's she doing?" he asked. "Better. You just gave her medicine that don't come in a bottle." Reporters shouted questions. He answered one. "What's next, Mr. Cole?" "Accountability's next. Then quiet. My grandma deserves quiet." He walked down the steps without a badge, without applause. Just the kind of silence that feels like truth catching its breath. Back in the hospital, Martha Cole watched the news from her bed. Her lips curved into a tired smile. "I told that boy the Lord don't need revenge, just witnesses." The nurse asked, "You think he listened?" "Baby," Martha said, eyes on the screen where her grandson's calm face filled the frame. "He turned it into policy." 3 weeks later, the town smelled like rain and paperwork. State investigators set up in the old courthouse, fluorescent lights flickering above stacks of evidence. Tanya's medical logs, Reed's statements, camera footage, and Eli's calm testimony printed line by line. It wasn't a trial. It was a mirror. Every word reflected a town learning how to look at itself. Chief Walters sat stiff at the witness table, sweat on his collar. "We followed procedure," he kept saying. The lead investigator, gray suit, calm voice, replied, "Procedure isn't protection when it's wrong." When they called Officer Holloway, the room leaned forward. His voice came out thin. "I didn't mean harm." "Meaning," the investigator said, "doesn't undo result." Cameras caught that sentence. It became tomorrow's headline. By noon, the board released its findings. Excessive authority used without legal cause. failure of command supervision, recommendation, termination, and federal review. Chief Walters resigned before sundown. Holloway was escorted out the back door, not in cuffs, but in silence louder than sirens. No one clapped. Accountability isn't applause. It's relief that took too long to arrive. Outside, Maple Hollow stood under a gray sky that felt like new paper. Tanya hugged Reed. Oath exhausted. Oath lighter. Reporters called it a small victory. Serena Price said, on air, "It's not small if you were the one waiting for it." Down the street, children chalked words on the pavement. Be decent first. Nobody told them what to write. They'd been listening. That evening, Eli pushed Martha's wheelchair to the porch. The flowers she'd tended for decades bloomed again, stubborn and bright. She looked at him, eyes shining but tired. "What'd the board decide?" He said, "They wrote the truth down this time." She smiled. "Then let's rest a minute." They sat in silence, the kind that belongs to survivors, not victims. Cars passed slow, drivers nodding like churchgoers leaving service. A month later, Maple Hollow PD hung a new sign over the entrance. Accountability Initiative, Pilot Department. Tanya trained recruits on respect intervals, teaching them to count to 5 before commanding anyone. Reed led bias workshops. Walter's office became a community room. The state Senate cited Martha's case during hearings on transparency. Somebody called it the coal standard. She never heard that phrase. She was too busy baking sweet bread for the neighbors who used to whisper. News crews left. Hashtags faded. But every sunset, that porch light still glowed. One evening, Eli sat alone, phone in hand, scrolling past the old video. He deleted it, not to forget, but because the lesson didn't need proof anymore. Martha opened the door behind him. "Everything okay, baby?" "Yeah," he said. "Feels different out here." She nodded. Daylight'll do that when it finally shows up. He looked at the horizon, soft orange melting into calm. For the first time in months, the street didn't feel like evidence. It felt like home. A month after the hearings, Maple Hollow finally felt slow again. No reporters, no chants, just mailboxes and morning dew. The porch steps at the coal house creaked the same as before, but the silence had changed flavor. It wasn't fear anymore. It was rest. Martha Cole sat wrapped in a shawl, mug of sweet tea steaming. Her flowers were tall again, stubborn things that refused to die, no matter how rough the season. Every petal looked like proof that survival could bloom quietly. The newspaper slid up the walk. Front page, accountability program approved statewide. She chuckled, low and proud. "Daylight travels," she whispered. Eli Cole pulled up in his truck, uniform folded on the seat beside him. He'd gone back to base, then home again, trying to learn what peace sounded like without orders. He leaned in the doorway, smiling. "You still up before the sun, Nana?" "Old habits," she said. "Light waits for no one." He joined her on the porch, both looking out at the street that had once been a battlefield of stairs. Now kids played tag on the same sidewalk. Neighbors waved without cameras. "You think it's over?" he asked. "Baby, storms don't end," she said. "They move on to teach somewhere else." The Maple Hollow Police Department reopened its doors under a new name, Community Response Division. Walls repainted, training rooms full. Tanya Briggs led morning sessions on empathy, not tactics. Officer Reed handled new recruits, teaching them to listen before talking. The motto, etched above the door, "Be decent first." Chief Walters? Gone quiet, living somewhere on the coast. No interviews. Holloway's name appeared once in a legal brief, then disappeared from the news entirely. people didn't mention him anymore. Erasure sometimes feels like justice in its slowest form. Serena Price's final broadcast aired one golden evening. She stood on the same street where it began, hair lifted by wind, voice steady. This story wasn't about one officer or one family. It was about the difference between order and justice, and what happens when a town finally learns to tell them apart. Then she turned off her mic, leaving only crickets and church bells. Viewers said it sounded like closure. That night, Martha sat alone under the porch light. Eli slept inside. She rocked slow, eyes tracing the moon climbing past her chimney. A breeze carried laughter from down the block, the kind of laughter she hadn't heard in years. Real, careless, free. She closed her eyes, whispering to the dark, "You see, Lord?" They learned the tune. The porch bulb flickered once, steady again. Somewhere, the world turned quietly right for a second. Not fixed, but forgiven enough to try. And Maple Hollow slept easy, wrapped in a silence that finally meant peace.